So much to talk about today, especially about CPI and inflation. But we got some fun stories. So let's get into this first one. Once asking $90 million as a listing price, an estate on Miami's Star Island sells for finally $57 million. Tell us about this and why it's significant.
It's significant because this is the stats we've been talking about, how there's like two markets. There's like the residential regular market, and then there's this luxury market, and how the two are not acting the same. So first off, everything that's around the median price throughout most of the United States, median being the middle and slightly above, is doing really well, especially here in the Seattle metro. Then when we get up into these upper luxury markets, and just some luxury markets, they're getting super beat up. So I saw this headline in the Wall Street Journal, and I was like, no freaking way. Come on. They started at 90 million and it sold for 57 million. So let's think about that. That's $33 million off of the list price, okay? That's 37% off. So when someone says, I want a deal, well, where do they need to go shopping to get a deal?
To get a deal?
Yeah, where?
Well, right now, off-market stuff to get a deal.
Off-market or in this luxury high-end market. So what's interesting is this luxury high-end market, I would actually say, is providing some of the best deals. In the traditional market, because you and I are looking at it all the time, are we seeing 37% off of anything?
No. Nothing.
Okay.
37% more.
37% more for the bidding war. Exactly. Beautiful home. It was one of the original homes that was there on the island. The original home was lifted up and they brought it to the back. And they built this big, giant, beautiful modern thing in the front, waterfront. You know, that's the clickbait stuff. The reality is this, and this is what I want our people to hear. There are deals in every part of the market. And there's deals, especially where there are not buyers. In this case, that's in the ultra luxury. But remember, that's also in some parts of commercial, some parts of multifamily, and off-market deals, just like you were saying.
What do you think the percentage is of people that buy these type of properties that have a mortgage on them?
Oh, almost none.
Almost none. So that's why, like, on two fronts, it's all arbitrary. Somebody selling at $90 million and then lowering it to $57 million, if they don't have a mortgage, they can do it. And they're probably playing the big boy game where, lost 33 million, whatever, I have another billion. And then on the flip side, the person buying it at that price, if they're not getting a mortgage, this is what I was talking to my wife about this morning. The rich getting richer is actually worse than people understand, because interest rates raising is affecting the middle class the most, and definitely the lower, like poor people, right? Or people that aren't doing well. But the people with a lot of cash, wealthy people especially, it's like normal season for them. Now, their business might be affected by higher interest rates. Inflation might still affect them, but in terms of real estate, if they're paying cash, they can still have these negotiations happening. So they keep moving forward, while the majority of the country, and I would probably say in the rest of the world, people are just sitting still.
Brilliant. What economists call this is literally a K-shaped recovery. And the K-shape means that the rich, they start just going up, and then the middle and the bottom actually trend down. Because who does inflation hurt the worst? It doesn't hurt someone with a big bag of money.
Hurts people that care about their grocery bills.
Hurts people that care about their grocery bills. And we're going to talk about inflation, next, but the K-shaped recovery is very true. The rich are going to get much richer during this cycle, and the middle and the bottom is going to take all of the beating.
Well, the big takeaway for this story, though it's kind of exaggerated, or just it's exciting, but maybe not as helpful for the average buyer, though, the importance of your finances. More than ever. Even Judy was saying, if we started today, like when we first bought our house in, early 2010s, if we were to start today, 10 years later, how much more would our mortgage payment be? How much more would our house price be? And I said, well, all that is obviously going to be relevant and is higher. But the thing that's the craziest is the interest rate.
It's so much higher.
It's, in our case, it's at least double. In some cases could be triple. It's almost impossible for those beginner house buyers. And that's what this kind of shows, the almost the ridiculousness of our society right now when it comes to real estate and the different types of players in the game.
There's a wealth gap and there's a wealth disparity that we see going on there. Inside of our sales team, most of the first-time home buyers that are coming to us right now actually have down payments. They're 5%, 10%. We don't have as many like we used to over the last decade and even the last few years, as many zero down home buyers. So most buyers that are coming, I would say, are actually a little more prepared. They have a little more skin in the game and they have a little more down right now. And it's because they have to. Here in the Seattle Metro, like if you don't come prepared to wage a little battle and win and lose a couple offers to win one, you're not going to get a house. So we made an offer for one of our clients down there in Columbia City. Columbia City is just south of I-90, between kind of Martin Luther King and then the lake right there. This buyer has 20% down. They are a first-time home buyer. Every offer they go up against in this part of the downtown metro, every buyer has 20% down. And so what you're seeing, and I don't like this, so this is where I'm going. What you're seeing is the buyer is more qualified, but then we're also going to miss out on maybe some future buyers who are going to have to be forced to rent because they had to get to that 5, 10, 20% down. It's getting harder to, get into the American dream. It just is. There's no way around it because prices are so high. Wages have not kept up with the increases in home prices. And then with mortgage rates being so high, it's like the triple whammy on it right now. Plus inflation. So inflation is just adding fuel to that fire because everything else is more expensive. Fundamentally, we're going to have to do some stuff to change housing and make housing more affordable. Otherwise, we'll just be telling stories about the uber rich for the rest of our lives.
That would be sad, unless you are uber rich. I'm often looking at the headlines on Twitter, or now called X, and one of my favorite reporters from CNBC, Diana Olick, she's always reporting on mortgages and real estate. And the takeaway from this post was mortgage applications jumped 20% from last year on, very specific, important, newly built homes. So my question is, dive into this statistic and maybe explain what is actually going on, because I think this can be confusing to some people because it sounds like mortgage applications jumping up means more people buying.
Yes.
But of course, this is in this segment of homes.
Like we're always talking about, we love numbers, but we want you to go find 2 or 3 numbers to verify any piece of information. I saw this and immediately I also had some emotion. I was like, wait a second, that's wrong. But then I actually thought it through. So let's think this through. Let's go through the whole process here. Residential home sales generally dominate the market. They make up about 90% to 85% of all sales is just residential resale. That's where Bob and Betty Smith already own the property. They're going to sell that property and go buy another one. The issue Bob and Betty Smith have is they literally have a 3% mortgage, and now to move up the property ladder, they'd have to go trade in their 3 for a 7. The jump in the payment is very large, so we have the lock-in effect. So there's a vacuum that's there. Transactions across the United States are down about 30%. But there's still a vacuum. We have more buyers than we have sellers because of that lock-in effect. So who's stepping into that vacuum to fill the void? It's the builders, the developers, it's new construction. We're going to go through new construction season. So new construction on a national level has doubled in the amount of new construction that's actually selling. So when you think about that and you go, oh, new construction has jumped up and more of it's selling, no wonder mortgage applications jump up. So when you see this, you think this is a positive headline, but there's also negative parts of this headline that we're going to talk about next segment. But the reality is, any way you look at it, builders are going to go through a heyday because of the lock-in effect, and they probably have about 36 months, maybe 60 months of that heyday. 2, new construction home builders are always going to be more incentivized than a resale home seller to sell their product. So they're going to provide you better deals, more mortgage rate buy downs and incentives to sell their product versus another one. And then number 3, they will also adjust to the market up or down faster than anyone else. Because the builder doesn't have one mortgage like the Smiths that we mentioned, the builder has 20 mortgages or 50 mortgages, or in the case of someone like D.R. Horton or Pulte Homes, tens of thousands of mortgages that they are working on, during the new construction cycle, so then they can sell it.
Yeah, well, they're ultimately more flexible because this is their business. Bingo. To build and sell homes, not to build and keep homes. So like you said, they have to do whatever the market's doing. But why this post is so important is because it exposes the weakness and the challenge for buyers.
Yes.
Because it seems like things are getting better because you hear 20% more mortgage applications, and you just explain, well, it's for newly built homes because they're making up the void of lack of inventory from just regular, sellers on the market. And if you think about it, and correct me if I'm wrong, these builders, they want to maximize their profits naturally.
Yeah.
And what I've heard is the more luxurious the home, the more high end the home, the better the deals are for them, the more profit. So they're not building these affordable homes or smaller homes. I mean, when's the last time you saw a 1,100 square foot house being built as a neighborhood?
There's only one in Snohomish County that was an affordable neighborhood that was being built of smaller homes.
One. In a time where we need more of those. So going back to what we were talking about, the ridiculousness of this $90 million home going down to $57 million, more important than ever, you do have to take your finances very seriously. You almost have to overcompensate for the times by over planning how much you need to make, how much you need to save, and how much it's going to cost to buy a house and pay for that mortgage.
There's one other part to this stat, so I went and dug into it just to get the exact numbers. So sales of newly constructed homes in July were up 4.4% for seasonally adjusted annual rate of 714,000. Okay. June was 684,000. This is according to the Department of Housing and Urban Development. Here's the big one. Sales in August were up 31.5% from a year ago. So like I said, that new construction is going right into that gap where the resale's missing. So there's that wave there. So for our investors, go build homes, go build ADUs, go flip properties, go install a manufactured home. This is saying the demand is there. It's clear in the numbers. For our home buyers, a good way to make money in a new construction development is you be the first to buy the house. This is an old builder trick. I need you to listen. This is important. This will make you money. Hit the like button because this is money. So they got 25 homes. What the builder always does is the first 3 to 5 they put on slightly below the market because they want to sell that first 3 to 5 in the first 2 to 3 weeks so they can gain momentum. And then they increase the prices anywhere between 2 to 5% every month until they hit an absorption rate that slows it down. And each plat's different, but let's say they want an absorption rate of 3 homes a month. So they adjust the prices to where they're selling 3 homes a month so they can go through on a schedule, and they keep raising them until the end. So you can buy the first home, and by the end of a subdivision, especially if it's a large one, if there's 100 homes there could be $50,000 or $100,000 in equity sitting right there by simply just buying the first one and waiting until the end. Go make some money. It's easy money.
I've never heard that before. That's crazy. And I've seen it though. That's what's interesting, because we have some family that bought a house up in the Issaquah area. So this is east of Seattle, deep in the forest basically. And they were one of the early ones to put in an offer. But all the houses afterwards all sold for more, except to the very end, because that's when they hit those 7 to 8% interest rates last year. So some of those went actually kind of down. But going back to your point, the builders have that flexibility, but they're so calculated. That's what's kind of interesting to me, that they're like, we're going to lose some money on these first 3, maybe.
Well, not lose money. We're going to have less profit
Less profit.
Because they know they're actually going to make more profit on the back end by building the momentum. And it's also really important because, so you have to think of builders as like a giant business, right? And they're trying to hit an absorption rate of the 3 deals a month. Once they hit 3 deals a month, they know they're going to work through the plat in a timely fashion and hit their numbers. And if they can then grab an extra 1 to 5% in profit, it's just gravy based on the projections. So they start low, build the energy, build the enthusiasm, get a little auction effect, and then they just push as far as they can go.
You probably just save some people maybe $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 in extra equity.
In the Seattle Metro, I literally just saved you 50 to 100 grand.
Okay, so
I mean, that's that big here.
People should definitely subscribe for that. Because if you have more of those, we want to know. Okay, let's dive into this next topic about the reverse of that post, which is mortgage application volume at lowest levels since 1996. So we're talking basically 30 years now.
Basically.
So what is that? What does that even mean, and why does that matter to the buyers?
With mortgages being the lowest since they've been since 1996, you have to realize since the 90s, going into the early 2000s, the 10s, and into the 20s, real estate consistently, we sell more units every year because the population of the U.S. has increased. So what they're saying is, I want you to go back to the 90s. I want you to go back 3 decades, and that's where we're at for mortgages right now. That's such a low volume, and I want to dissect this for a second, because this is how we want our listeners thinking. We want you thinking the number behind the number behind the number, or what's the data that causes the correlation here, and how do I glue it all together? So home sales are 3.9 to 4.1 million annualized rate. But why are mortgages so low? Mortgages are so low because the refinance market is dead. The refinance market, see, when everyone had a 3%, so we came out of the late 10s and into COVID, and mortgage rates were dropping. They were about 5, and they went from, the 5s into the 4s and then into 3s and touched the top of the 2s. So everyone refinanced. We went through the largest refinance boom ever. And then all these mortgage companies stacked up on employees. And all my friends who are loan officers made the most gangster money of their careers. Ridiculous money. Does anyone want to refi a 7.5% mortgage right now?
No.
So the only refinances that are happening are forced. They have to do it because of, a forced life event, death, divorce, loss of job, blah, blah, blah. So that refinance market is dead, but also we know the purchase market is down 30%. I spoke with one of our loan officers today, and he was at a lending event last week. And he said, did you know that there in Q2, when mortgages peaked of 2022, there were approximately 181,000 loan officers across the United States.
181,000?
Yes, 181,000.
Wow.
What do you think it dropped to in Q2 of 2023?
Half?
They lost almost 100,000. They're at 89,000 right now. And loan officers is not like real estate, so they renew in January. So their feeling is the industry may lose another 20 to 30,000 at the end of 23 going into 24. There's a couple opportunities here. One, I know this sounds crazy. It's probably a good time to become a loan officer because the industry is going to get so small in 2024. As interest rates go down, you're going to be able to ride the wave up, okay? My mind just looks for these types of opportunities. I even told my sister, I was like, hey, maybe you should be a loan officer. She's like, the market sucks. I was like, no. You're going to get started right now, and then in 2024, you're going to make money. And I explained that to her, and she goes, well, that's not a half bad idea. Second, are interest rates going to have to come back down? Is the Federal Reserve going to have to lower them at some point?
I think they do have to.
Yes.
But the question is when.
The question is when. Absolutely. Sometime in the next 1 to 3 years. They have to. So at that point, that's going to cause the market to light back on fire, these loan officers to be able to come back in, and mortgage applications to go up. So for our investors, for our buyers, what do? You do it now. Okay, you do it now while the market is beat up, while there's opportunity, while you can find the deals. For the loan officers, what they need to do, and I was just having this conversation with some of my Godzilla friends, they are out recruiting other talented loan officers to work for them right now. They're tightening their budgets. They're picking up the phone more. Okay, the people who are doing the business are the ones getting into the relationships. Also, if loan applications are at the lowest they've been since 1996 and the lowest number of deals since 1996, are banks lending out as much money?
No.
So that liquidity crunch that we started talking about 90 days ago, 6 months ago, this is it showing up. We've been telling everyone it's coming. This is the liquidity crunch happening. The Fed tightened it. The money's draining. Less loans are being originated. What happens to a tide, though? Does it go in and out?
Yes.
So right now it's going out. But at some point, that tide's going to have to come back in. See, I'm a futurist. I'm a maximizer. So I'm looking at this going, okay, I don't know when the perfect time is to hit the wave, but I'm getting ready for the wave. And we started paddling to be prepared for the wave because we believe sometime in 24 or 25, we're going to get back to a higher level, not 2019, 20, and 21 levels, but probably 2018, 2017 levels. So you need to get prepared for that. If you're a builder or developer, you need to start getting product ready for the 24 and the 25 and the 26 market now. It just makes sense because everyone's pulling back. I went to a fundraiser for one of our friends who's fighting the good fight, and we'll give him some money. And we were talking about yellow iron. Yellow iron is excavators. And one of our other friends walked up, and he owns a large excavating company. I was like, how's your business? It's like, we're killing it. He's killing it because of his level of work, level of service, level of communication. But I know from talking with some of my other builders and developers, there's a lot of yellow iron that's starting to sit right. And you're seeing the yellow iron pop up at the auction house that's for sale. So that means excavators are slowing down. The earthwork people are slowing down. So when are the best deals? When everyone gets slow. Come on, developers, let's go. It's times like this when you look around, you see these outside signals, you should be saying it's go time. Okay, that's a go signal. Lastly, with loan originations being this low, mortgage applications being this low, does this mean they are going to start coming out with creative products and start fighting for the consumer? It absolutely does. So they're going to start fighting for the consumer. They're going to start doing things sometime in the next 6 months to draw that consumer in to get more originations, which could include things like you saw Zillow did that 1% down product. They'll start offering cheaper discount points. Banks have to lend money. So when things get this tight, they have to figure out other ways to lend the money and other ways to keep it moving. So mark my words, you're going to get some funky little products that come out that are going to be good for you as an investor and good for you as a home buyer.
Won't last forever either.
And
so
they
you
won't
want
last.
to take advantage of that now,
No.
if you can.
It'll be like a short-term 30-day, 60-day, 90-day product. They're just pushing it out, trying to cycle some loans. So you get in relationships with your local community banks. You get in relationships with your big volume mortgage brokers, and you have them looking for special products for you, and you're calling them every couple of weeks. What do you got that's unique? What's a cool product I could use? Because the people they're in relationships with are the ones they're going to tell about this stuff.
That was such a good takeaway about when the market gets slow. That's when you want to get into the market. You know, obviously as not as obvious, but to me it's obvious as a professional because there's less competition, and yeah, it's going to be slow, but then when things pick back up, you're going to be established versus kind of catching up. But even just the opportunities with lending that's going to happen right now.
Yeah.
Now they're kind of, in my opinion, I'm just curious your thoughts on this or your reply. Kind of gimmicky because at the end of the day, it's the interest rate that matters because the mortgage. So yeah, it might help these special needs type of buyers, special needs just being people that have a unique situation, right? But for the most part, people are going to be waiting on the Fed lowering the interest rates, hence the mortgage rates being lower.
It is gimmicky. And what I'm telling you as an investor and as a home buyer, find the gimmick that works for you and then just do it. Because once again, they're offering it trying to make loans. Everything in real estate is a pendulum, okay? It's swinging too hard to the no liquidity, we don't want to do loans, which means at one moment it's going to break free. And as it's breaking free, some unique stuff, and then we'll get over here for just a brief moment where they'll be giving away too much stuff. Then they'll go, oh, just kidding. And they'll push it right back to the middle.
So be the person that's set up to get that great gimmick.
Exactly.
It's like when they offer extra samples at Costco. You want to be there when they're like at the very end, when they're just like, yeah, have the whole pizza.
What are your thoughts on CPI?
Oh, great. So, I think about CPI because I'm obsessed with economics, but I want to explain what CPI first off. Basically, that's the price of things to consumers, price of things to you, okay? Why it matters is because it's going to affect everything in your life, because if oil prices go up, that's inflation. Well, that's going to affect not only you putting gas in your tank, but it's going to affect the cost of doing business. So there's this trickle effect, no pun intended, that influences everything and inflates all prices. My thought is CPI just came in and it ticked up. So if you're not following this, inflation was going high, like so crazy. And then the Federal Reserve, who controls the master interest rates, I guess you could say, had to put on the brakes and actually go into reverse. So now what we saw was inflation came down. And it was almost kind of like crazy. It's like, it's really happening. Like they're doing their job. At least that's what they probably think. But then it ticked up.
Yep.
To me, I'm not scared of it, but it is scary to think that if you have one more of those, that means that interest or that inflation is very sticky. And my thought is, and this is why I think I could win the $100 next week, is inflation is going to force the Federal Reserve to at least keep rates high, if not higher, which means the next, and we used to say like maybe the next 12 to 18 months would be very difficult. Now I'm thinking more like 18 to 24 months is going to be difficult. So 2 years of pain, or at least a lot of adjusting and settling and really uncertainty. That's my thoughts. Off of one reading, which is going up.
So let's give the listeners the numbers so they're on the same page. Consumer prices rose 0.6 in August, the biggest monthly gain of 2003. The inflation gauge rose 3.7% from a year ago. So you're correct. We got down to like 3.2 and then boom, we started to bounce up a little bit. So this is inflation accelerating. Core CPI, so core is when they take out the volatile food and energy, increased at 0.3 and 4.3 respectively, against estimates for 0.2 and 4.3. So core did good. The Fed focuses more on core. So this is my $100. The Fed focuses more on core because they believe it's a better indication of where inflation is headed over the long term. Now, the consumer has a short mind. And we keep forgetting the 70s. We keep forgetting how long inflation stayed around. And we also believe that things just go the way we want them to go. That's not how markets work. Markets always move up and down. They always move back and forth. So I would say, one, this is a little scary. So we should be scared, skeptical, and know that the Fed has said higher for longer. Okay. 2, it's still overall trending in the correct direction. 3, and this was weird and why I think I get to keep my $100. As that happened, the odds of the Fed raising by the stock market went down.
Why?
I have no clue. There's no answer to that. It doesn't make logical sense. So the stock market was betting more that the Fed wouldn't raise even though that rose. Crazy. There's no logical explanation.
The only logic I can think of is because they base off a core inflation and that did go down.
Bingo. Actually, that's brilliant. Yes.
But wisdom would tell you, if you understand how core works and how CPI, which is the broader inflation, usually leads the core.
Yes.
So there could be a lag effect both ways.
There could. And the thing to remember, core is without food and energy. And the big influencing factor for this inflation read was that big jump in gas prices. Gas prices jumped 10.6% over the previous month. In 1 month. That is 120% annualized over a year. I'd take 120% return on anything. So what I'd like to do for a second is I want to go through some of these numbers because we dug into the actual report. And I want you to comment if you're seeing something different, or you're realizing something different, or your situation is different, because these are national numbers, and this is from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, but this is how they report them. So food is up 4.3% year over year, and here's some stats on food numbers. Okay, so we're going to do food, shelter, and energy. They're saying eggs are down 18.2%. Butter is down 4.8. Milk is up 3.5. Fish up 0.1. Coffee 0.9. Fruits and veggies up 2.1. Meats up 2.6. Bread up 6.3. I don't know what you're seeing, but I'm going to say my grocery bill is not reflecting this. What's your feeling?
Well, when I heard the eggs down 18%, I'm like, they're still really expensive though, like compared to 3 years ago. So yeah, I think all these numbers kind of arbitrary because the grocery store isn't going to look at this and then tick it down a few cents.
Yes.
They just are going to maybe be slow to react because there's so many more things at the grocery store than just these.
Yes.
Because everything else at the grocery store, I don't see it coming down at all, prices.
Okay, so let me give you a horrible food stat that I learned this week. Since 1950, like 2 or 5, but somewhere in the 50s, groceries have never gone down in prices when they went up. So in the last 70 years, every time grocery prices have gone up, they've never returned to a normal. Unfortunately, I think that's going to happen again. We're just going to have to deal with higher grocery prices. So these minor wage increases that people have been getting or have been receiving are being eaten up by this inflation. The other factor here is your mind tries to trick you about data. Inflation measures the price that it was last year to this year, not it going back down at all. So if the price of something was 100 and then in the next year it's 113, it went up 13%. But in the year after that, it's 115, it only went up 2%, but it still went up 15 over 2 years. So inflation is just measuring that last year-to-year number. So as a consumer, we feel this much longer than the Federal Reserve cares for, or even they have to target as their mandate. Because as that price goes up, we assume it's going to come back down, and we want it to. They don't have to get it to come back down. They have to get the rate at which it's going up to go back to normal, not down. That's the hard part.
I know that we probably lost some viewers here because my mind's spinning. But the reason I'm saying that is to acknowledge the fact that these are a lot of numbers. These are a lot of things that maybe the average person isn't even thinking. But this is why it's so important, because that was my next question to explain how inflation affects interest rates, affects you as a buyer and seller. But the food comment you said was a big deal. Just the short version of what you just said. Food has never come back down when it went up. Food is such a huge cost, and it feels like it's eating up most of our budgets. That's just food. And if what you just said is correct, that means it's not going down. That means it's going to continue being expensive or more expensive. That's just one part of the budget. And I told you with energy affects everything else. So that means the cost of living is just going to be expensive from here on out. But more importantly, to the people that are buyers and sellers or real estate professionals, most likely that means house prices probably won't come down either. And that is the most significant part of this. This is why inflation is important to pay attention to as a professional. As an average buyer and seller, you don't have to, right? But why it's important for you to kind of understand this, because everything's going to be more expensive. It's going to be harder. And this is what I meant by like, hey, if there's one piece of advice I could give to people, I never did. In all the years I've ever like helped my friends out, they want to buy something, we're running the numbers. The number one thing I'm telling people is you need to make more money. Yeah. In your job, you have to ask for the raise or get promoted, because you can't hope that yesterday's prices will return. It's not. When you print that much money, it's going to be so much more expensive. And that is the scariest thing of all, because you think buying a house is shitty right now, it's going to get worse.
You print $6 trillion and everything has to get more expensive. They proved that to us before, and they should have never printed that much money. That was greed, that was politicians, that was fear, and that was letting go of the purse strings for too long, which caused massive corporate speculation and investor speculation, even on the smaller side, which just kept the money growing and growing and growing. That tide, that liquidity crunch has to come back in. That piper has to get paid. But that 6 trillion never goes away. So it forms, it's like stairs. We just took a step up. We're standing now on that new step. Everything's just more expensive. And you said it's so brilliant. That was brilliant. If everything's more expensive, real estate has to stay more expensive. Period. End of discussion. Shelter. Okay. So shelter. This is how they look at that. Shelter is rents and owner equivalent rents. That's how they measure it. Owner equivalent rent is if you own the home and you actually just paid for it as rent, what would it look like? That's how they measure it. They also measure it very slowly. So what they measure it over is a 12-month run. So it rises slow and it drops slow. So shelter's probably going to come down, but shelter, aka housing, rose for the 40th consecutive month in a row. Shelter cost was up 7.3%. And I know the people who rent and are rental properties, and just what I'm seeing, I am seeing those rental rates rise. There's a property you know about. The property management was in that just a couple days ago. They told me $2,600 is what we should ask for rent for that one now, which is $100, $200 more than it just previously was. Crazy. So this should start declining. However, this is the problem. There are some signs that shelter is picking back up and that rents are starting to increase and home prices are starting to increase. The Fed is not getting what they want, so they may have to beat us up, and I might lose that $100. So energy prices are, this is a mind boggler too. Energy prices are down 3.6% year over year, so they are falling. However, from July to August, the month-over-month energy prices rose 5.6%, and gasoline shot up 10.6%. So in the last year, they're saying energy prices are coming down, but we just had a bump. That's why core was still trending in a downward direction, but CPI popped up. It's because of this energy. We're a petroleum-based economy, okay? No matter how much we want to push EVs and how cool we think there are and how many Teslas Elon can build, we are still super dependent on petroleum. That's what causes everything in the economy to run. When gas pops up 10% in a month, it's massive inflationary. They have to get this under control and get this slowed down. The problem is, normally we dip into our strategic oil reserves. Well, we already pulled that trick. We can't go to the strategic oil reserves and go grab, tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of barrels to pull the price down right now because we already did that trick. And at some point, the U.S. has to refill, which is going to make prices come up even more. High gasoline prices are here to stay. I don't see how to make them go lower due to our environmental regulations, due to our massive pushes for EV, and due to geopolitical relations with other people around the world, and of course, the war between Russia and Ukraine. The Fed has a tough job in front of them. We need to remember higher for longer. I really agree with you. I was hanging out with some very smart friends last weekend. They're all ballers. They all own and operate businesses, and some of them are real estate professionals and some of them are outside. The consensus of the group: be prepared for another 24 months. Think it could be 36. Be prepared for 24. If it happens in 12, thank you God, let's rock and roll. But be mentally prepared for 2 more years of toughing it out through a transitioning economy and higher interest rate environment.
You know what it makes you think of is we're just paying the price now for what we push to the future in 2020.
There are multiple people right now who believe that the Federal Reserve, Jerome Powell, the chair of the Federal Reserve, is trying to kill what's called the Fed put. The Fed put is where we take a problem, and this started with Greenspan, and your football team is backed into the corner and you punt it to the other end and just deal with it later. And we've done that through massively lowering interest rates, the printing of money, liquidity. Jerome Powell is really trying to wring that out of us right now because we printed so much money and we're addicted to it. We're addicted to these boom and bust cycles. Someone asked me earlier today at the office if I thought he was going to be, I don't think he's going to be successful. I'd like him to be. But I think the American economy as a whole, and there's so much political pressure that we're addicted to these boom bust cycles and that we're going to have to stay there. You want a conspiracy theory for half a second?
Yeah.
Okay. So
it's fun.
So we got BlackRock, Vanguard, and these large hedge funds control massive amounts of, the U.S. economy. How much can we let companies like that get beat up before they start applying massive lobby pressure, political pressure to get interest rates lower so their money printers turn back on? If they own everything and control everything, it has to happen. Also, you can't let the American consumer get bled out. You can't let commercial go through a massive tsunami. I still am sticking with my call that interest rates will start coming down in 2024 and that we could see good interest rates, 5s, by 2025. So ignore 3 and 4%. We're not going back there for a while. But based on what we've been talking about on the investor side, on the home buyer side, on the seller side, if things even come into the 5s, it's going to be crazy. So I don't think corporate America, these hedge funds, these big Wall Street money, this big real estate funds can wait forever for the Fed. So I think the Fed's going to start receiving massive pressure, especially going into an election year, to push to change. It's going to see interesting how much Jerome's going to be able to take because he's going to start taking bullets here soon. Not bullets literally, just like flack from people.
That got real dark. If that is the case, I even said it, right? Next couple of years,
yes.
24 months.
Yes.
What do people need to know and what should they do? Let's go through it. Buyers, sellers, investors.
Yeah. Buyers, if you're in that first-time home buyer category, you need to buy now. And you need to buy before interest rates go down because your competition is then going to go up dramatically. And investors, they need to buy this winter. Game of Thrones, winter is coming. This winter is going to be the hard spot in the real estate market, and hard spots create deals. It's go time. Let's rock and roll. So I think this winter is going to be that fun time. And I think it's actually already starting because we're starting to see it for the investor. I think for the home seller, I think you need to wait. The home sellers that we're dealing with right now are the have to sells or I need to, not that I want to or I'm doing it for fun or just to upgrade. It's not the right time for that because your mortgage is going to shoot up $1,500 a month or something like that. For the builders, for the developers, it's 9,000% go time. It's go, 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 go. Here's the problem though. For the small guys, the liquidity is really tight right now and really hard. I want you small people, I'm talking to you. Go hunt the deal down. Give it to the big people. Go hunt the deal down. Grab the partner. This is for my small to my medium investors, builders, developers. This is the next year and a half is going to be the partnership, the terms, the negotiation, the deal. It's going to become more important. And the ones who get involved now are going to learn those skills. I'm talking those 2008, 9, 10, 11, 12 skills that they need that will make them so much money over the next decade. Lots of partnerships, lots of finding capital right now.
Sweet. Well, I would tell you to get your $100 bill ready next week, but I feel like I should bring it too because it's still kind of up in there.
We're going to bring our hundreds. We're going to put them on the table and we're going to review it together. If you enjoyed this video, watch this one too.